Just computer. Okay, so I just want to welcome everyone. It's wonderful to hear that we have people from around the world joining us this morning or evening, wherever you are. Diana unfortunately couldn't make it this morning. She's got something important that she needs to take care of, but you have me. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction and then hand over to Beryl. And then at the end, we can do questions. So please hold your questions for the end. In the meantime, you can, if you want to, put it in the chat. But ultimately, question time we'll do at the end. So Arnie Witkin in conversation with Beryl Eichenberger. As an elder, he has seen the highs and lows of life. As a grandfather, he hears the younger generation's challenges. So he decided to put his experiences of developing coping strategies into a slim volume called It's Not a Big Thing in Life, Strategies for Coping. Written originally as a guide for his grandchildren, his strategies will resonate with us all and may well echo your own or not. This engaging and humorous man has lots to talk about, but he would like to get some questions from you before the talk. Oh, you want to do questions before, sorry.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
We'll take it as it comes.
Okay, so I hand over to you.
Hi, I'm Beryl Eichenberger. I'm a semi-retired PR specialist now in my mid-70s, so I am also one of the elders. Well, we all have a story to tell, and I think that looking at the audience that we've got today, there are probably lots of stories to tell. But this one is particularly around Arnie and his book, and I'm going to just hold up the book so that you can have a look at it. It might be in reverse, I'm not sure. We've all had our ups and downs, learnt lessons along the way, and can impart wise advice to our grandchildren, friends, and acquaintances. Sometimes life is a bit of a mystery. Small things become mountains, and the things that matter get lost as we fight our way out of the swamp. I used a number of books to get me through those times, like Don't Sweat the Small Stuff and Tuesdays with Maury, which were wise and easy to read, answering my questions and giving me a path to follow. As an elder, Arnie Witkin has seen the highs and lows of life. As a grandfather, he listens to the younger generation's challenges, and he hears them very distinctly. So he decided to put all of his experience of developing coping strategies into this slim volume called It's Not a Big Thing in Life, Strategies for Coping. This now resides on my shelf alongside the other two books I mentioned. Whilst it was written originally as a guide for his grandchildren, his strategies will resonate with us all and may well echo your own, or not. This engaging and humorous man, I think you all know that, has lots to talk about. So, Arnie, let's get into the nitty-gritty. A very warm welcome and good morning to you, and good evening to those from across the world.
Thank you very much.
Hi. I think first, let's get a potted version of your journey, from Joburg boy to London businessman, investment pioneer, and lots more.
Yeah, thanks very much. I was born in Johannesburg, like a lot of people here were. I went to Saxonville Primary, Parktown Boys High, Dunman College. I did accountancy at Wits, qualified in 1965. Went to London in 1960, 66, 67. In those days, it wasn't that common to take gap years, but of course I had to work. And a lot of my theories come from that time when I was 21, 22, 23. In London, I was the accountant of the Playboy Club.
I want to hear more about that experience because that was just wonderful and so unlikely. I was living in London in 1966 as well, before I actually emigrated to South Africa. So the Playboy Club was somewhere that you got taken if you were really living it up. But yeah, tell us more about that experience, because I think that had a major impact on your life.
Can I come back to that? I just finished the potted history.
Sure.
Okay. Got back to London, got back to Johannesburg in 1968. Worked as a stockbroker for 7 years. Then I worked as the investment manager of Legal and General Insurance Company for 6 years. And in all modesty, we were the top performing institution in the country for 5 years in a row. I then started New Bernica, which was a private equity company, the first formalized private equity company in South Africa. And they used to call me unofficially, the father of private equity. And now that's become the grandfather. In 1989, that fund came to its logical conclusion, and Ronnie and I emigrated to London. We were there I was consulting to a merchant bank for a year, and then the chief executive of the merchant bank was fired. And so I had no more job. And for 3 years, I was out of work. I was running out of money. In 1994, I probably had enough money to last me for 3 months. I had to come back to Johannesburg to do business. Fortunately, I still had a fair reputation, and I started another private equity company in 1994. I used to travel to Joburg once a month for between a week and 10 days. That company was taken over in 1997 by Gensec, and then we started another private company fund, which was not listed, in 1998, and that came to its conclusion in 2004. And then I sort of semi-retired and did a lot of mentoring and coaching, and I wrote a few speeches to people. But in 2001, I got advanced thyroid cancer. Advanced means that it spread out of the thyroid to other parts of the body. And one of the problems with that is that it had spread the laryngeal nerve. The laryngeal nerve controls the vocal cord. So I had a paralyzed vocal cord, and I could only speak in a high-pitched whisper for 3 years. I was a director and chairman of 4 or 5 companies, and I used to go to board meetings, and they gave me a microphone. So I had a little microphone to speak into in order to be heard. Anyway, in 2004, I got a in Boston, and what they do is they can't unparalyze the vocal. They wedge cortex behind the vocal cord, so it's nearer the midline. So when you speak, your vocal, so my vocal cord, and then I got my voice, which is now about 70% of what it should be. So I did a lot of mentoring work and stuff like that. I did a lot of my own investments. And 2 years ago, I was writing my book. Now, just to bring on the book, you know, I've been contemplating the universe and working out theories and stuff since I was, 14 or less. And I've got a whole file of things I've written down, should, shouldn't, must, mustn't, do, don't, observations. And I started writing them all down. And then I thought, I'm going to put this into one folder for my grandchildren. So I called it Considerations for My Grandchildren. And it had about 20 pages in Word. And a friend of mine's daughter was going to university. And I said, have a look at this. Maybe you'll find something that resonates, or maybe you won't. And she read it and she said, you can't give the children. She said, this has got to be for the whole world. So I said, okay, for the whole world. Then I actually got down and wrote the book.
Wonderful. So now we've got a picture, which many of your global friends will know, but also many of the people who are online today won't know. Let's pop back to 1966. when it all started and you were working for the Playboy Club. And you said that many of your strategies you worked out when you were 21, 22. Let's talk about that, because as I said, I think working at the Playboy Club must have been quite something. And I think that you've got quite a few funny stories to tell us there. But what was it about working there that sort of shaped you to start with?
Well, first of all, Beryl, it was, as Frank Muir said, it was the height of the sexual revolution.
Exactly.
But by the time I discovered it, they called a ceasefire. Anyway, I got to London because I was very infatuated with a young girl. She was a BA English student, and she used to come out with me every now and again over a period of about 3 years. And one day she said, "Don't call me again. You're immature. Read not much experience with women. You're tied to your mother's apron strings. Read not much experience with women. And we're not on the same intellectual level." Now, she was a BA English student. How could I possibly be on the same intellectual level? Now, I dropped her home that afternoon, and I was driving home, and I thought to myself, she wouldn't have said that unless she believed it was true. So while I was stinging a lot, I thought to myself, if it's true, what am I going to do about it? And between Camarenia and where we lived in Riviera, I decided that when my articles expired in 3 months' time, I was going to go to London. My mother was quite an anxious person. She was particularly unhappy with us. My father was a bit more understanding. I had a little bit of money saved up, and I went to London. And I had to get a job. Now, my father organized 3 job interviews for me. I went to all 3. I was offered 3 jobs out of politeness. I went out of politeness, and I turned them all down because I didn't want to be tied to my mother's apron strings. I had to find my own job.
Lesson number 1.
No, yeah, I had to be independent. So at the Overseas Visitors Club where I was, there was a sign that said chartered accountant wanted for London Club. So I went to the interview. I was 22. I had short hair. In London, everybody had long sideburns. I was wearing sandals and a check shirt, and I looked like I came out of Pofada. And I went in, I said, I'd like to apply for this job. So this young lady in 1966 wore these dresses that started late and finished early. She looks at me, she says, "Are you a chartered accountant?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Do you have a certificate?" I said, "Yes." She said, "This job won't suit you." I said, "London Club, Arsenal, Spurs, Fulham, Chelsea, Queen's Park Rangers." "Oh," she says, "not that kind of club. Surrey Cricket Club, Middlesex Cricket Club." She said, "It's not that kind of club." I said, "Well, what other kind of club is there?" And she says, "The Playboy Club." I said, "The Playboy Club." Now, I was quite a shy guy. If I drove past it, I was nervous. I said, "My God, what'll my mother say?" And with a twinkle in her eye, she signed out. So she phoned up the Playboy Club, and she said, "I've got a young chartered accountant here. Seems like a very decent guy." And they said, "Send him in for an interview." So Monday morning, I went for an interview, and I was terrified, I must tell you. So they interviewed me for 2 hours and asked me about my experience. And luckily, I had done the audit of a sports club. And basically, the sports club is no different from the Playboy Club, except the uniforms are different. And in those days, they sent telegrams to my previous bosses asking for references. And the next week I got a telegram myself because they didn't know where to get hold of me. Said, you're starting on Monday. Now, basically, it was actually a job like any other. Just happened to be the Playboy Club, and that's got a certain mystique. But I had to put in all the internal controls and I had to put in the accounting systems. But the biggest thing about the Playboy Club for me was my boss. His name was Bill Gerhauser, and he liked me. He was a Marine. He was about 45, and he'd been at Vietnam, and he was afraid of nothing. And he could see I was quite a different kind of guy, but shy with women. And one day he said to me, Arnie, he said, what you need is exposure. He said, what you've got to do is you've got to expose yourself to any kind of situation. Never put yourself in danger and never take drugs. This is 66. He was very hot on never take drugs. But he said, take risks, go out, find out, travel, get out of yourself. What have you got to lose? Do something with yourself. And that had an immense influence on me. If I was slightly afraid to do things, I would do it.
I mean, I love it in your book, what you say, and I think it's something that we all say. What's the worst thing that can happen? That's really the question that one asks oneself when it's taking a risk and you're not a risk taker. So you started taking risks, and you also had, as you mentioned, you had quite a tough time with the opposite sex when you were younger because you had a weight problem. So, and I think that there probably today are quite a lot of youngsters who have a similar problem. There's this awful, with social media, there's so much that goes on about fat shaming and that type of thing. How did you deal with that? Apart from, I know you lost weight, but what strategies did you actually learn from the losing weight and gaining more self-esteem? Because of course it's all about self-esteem.
Yeah, well, self-esteem is a huge subject in itself, but I think that there are a number of, let's say, epiphanies that I had. I was a bit concerned about writing this chapter on sex, but I thought it's a huge part of our lives, and particularly for my grandchildren. It was difficult for me. For some people, it comes very easily. But, I tell the story where one night, and in those days, you sort of did a lot of things, but maybe not that one thing. But suddenly I discovered not everything was in working order. Now, I wasn't sure whether I should put this book in or not, and whether my children and grandchildren might have a problem with it. But I thought I would put that in because, this can happen to young people and they should know what to do with it. And what helped me there was I'd read a poem by D.H. Lawrence. He said, when desire has failed, all you can do is wait. But particularly in London, after this thing with Bill Gerhauser, and I had this girlfriend, this bunny girlfriend, and I thought to myself, this is me. I can't change myself. You either like me or I don't, or you don't. So once I got to that so-called epiphany, that this is me. You know, I'm not such a bad person. I've got self-esteem. That gave me a lot of confidence. The other thing I covered about self-esteem is that everybody wants to feel good about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the one way to get self-esteem is to make somebody else feel good about themselves. So that was one of my strategies. And then, of course, Fiddler on the Roof. I had an epiphany with Fiddler on the Roof when the tailor Mottle Gamzoil asks Tevye if he can marry Zeitel. And Tevye says to him, but you're only a poor tailor. And suddenly this diminutive Mottle Gamzoil frightened guy stands up and he says, yes, but even a poor tailor is entitled to happiness. And you're as entitled to be there as anybody else. I mean, that builds self-esteem. The other thing that London taught me more than anything else, and which to me is the bedrock of all my philosophies, in fact, is that responsibility is total. You are responsible for yourself.
Yes.
You can't blame your parents, the government, your children, your grandchildren, your friends, your rabbis, nothing. You're responsible for yourself, and you can have no expectations of anybody. Now, when you take responsibility in itself, that gives you self-esteem, because that empowers you. It's up to me. I've got to do it.
I think that's what I like, particularly, Arnie, if I may, about the book, is that throughout the whole book, it is about taking responsibility. You're not giving advice per se, you're offering strategies. So it's not telling somebody that you should do it this way. It's never preachy. And I think that's really what I enjoyed particularly. And it's use it or lose it. You know, these are my ideas. This is what I learned from living my life. And it's that responsibility that is so vitally important. As you say, it's the bedrock. And of course, we Jews tend to have blame in our DNA. You know, we all know it's not our fault, it's somebody else's fault or whatever. And we have to get over that. And sometimes that's not a very easy lesson. But if I may go back a little bit also, you got a lot of self-esteem, I think, from playing cricket and hence the wonderful forward by Michael Holding. But you were good at cricket, and that also taught you a number of lessons, as sport so often does when you're a young person.
Well, that's quite interesting, Beryl, because in theory, when you play cricket, this is a massive risk.
Sure.
Because you go out first ball, you feel you could be humiliated. But strange enough, it was the exposure bit that propelled me to go to Ealing Cricket Club, where I knew nobody. And I was quite diffident. You walk into a strange place, you know nobody, you're from a strange country. Two of my friends had played for Ealing, and I just rocked up on a Sunday afternoon for nets. And I said, I'm me. And they said, fine, you can go and bat. And I thought to myself, I've got as much right to be here as anybody else. And I was good at cricket, I mean, relatively good. In the second team, I was the best player. In the first team, I was the worst. So, I'm always happy to be in the second division, so long as I enjoy myself. But cricket became a great passion of mine. In fact, I played for Ealing Cricket Club for 38 years, and I played cricket till I was 61. and then took up golf, which I'm equally passionate about. And of course, we became friendly with Michael Holding, which in itself is an irony, because in the book I say how my father, who was quite an anxious person, once said to me, "You've got to be careful of the fast bowlers." Now, a statement to a 12-year-old, "Be careful of the fast bowlers," is very negative and gives that person, gave me fear instead of enthusiasm, although I still had the enthusiasm. And just as an aside, by the way, one of the people who read my book, one of David's friends, wrote to me, said, "Arnie, I read that thing in your book about the fast bowlers." He said, "And I realized that I've been telling my son, who's a goalkeeper, be careful of the big centre forwards, watch out how you dive." He said, "And when I read that thing about the fast bowlers," he said, I changed my talk to my son completely, because I could see how negative it was. But the great irony is that one of the fastest bowlers of all time and one of the most feared fast bowlers of all time, Michael Holding, actually has written the foreword to my book. So I've enlisted the fast bowlers.
Which is absolutely perfect. One of the things that you mentioned earlier was about writing things down, or you glossed over it a bit, but I want to come back to that because it is really so important. And you, from a very early age, wrote things down. And that's one of the core features also of the book, that you write down and make a plan. Tell us about that strategy.
What happens is that in our heads, we've got a million things going around and lots of ghosts. If this happens, that happens. I'm worried about this. I'm frightened of that. If I try this, that's going to fail. Now, my go-to strategy is to write down everything to do with the thing that I'm worried about. So, for an example, in 1994, I never had a job. I had no money. We were in London. So I wrote down, what is the problem? What outcome do I want? I need a career. What are the obstacles? Who can help me? What's in my control? What's not in my control? What options do I have? Now, when you write all these things down, what am I afraid of? When you write them all down, they become, concrete. You can see them. And when you write down all your options and potential obstacles and how you're going to overcome them, then you can make a choice. And that choice gives you power, and that choice gives you freedom. Now, it's only when written down that you expunge the shadows in your head. And I find that for almost any problem, you write down, what am I going to do? What's my plan? I always say there's only one question, what's my plan? And, when I had my cancer, which is 2001, I was on radiotherapy. And then in 2009, I had prostate cancer. And then my cancer moved to my lungs and I was on a chemotherapy drug. And after the prostate operation and the cancer had spread to my lungs and all that stuff, I hope this doesn't sound too dramatic. I was there. I had a catheter, I was constipated, I was complaining, and I was in a dreadful state. So I took a pencil and paper and I wrote down, what is my strategy for coping? And when I wrote it down, what happened was I came up with a modus operandi where I could function normally. Now, the strategy I did have, by the way, was to count my blessings. Sounds trite, but when you count your blessings, it's hard to be upset about
negative.
things. You know, you count your blessings. Wow, am I lucky? My wife, my family, my friend. You know, my position. The other thing I wrote down was never moan or complain or wallow in self-pity, because that just takes you further into yourself, which is different from saying, you know, I'm not that great today. Humor was a coping strategy, listening to music, taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
But all these things came by writing them down.
I think what's important, and you've brought up the subject of coping when you're ill. We've gone through 18 months of the pandemic. We've lost so many people completely out of our control. So I think that particular chapter in your book is enormously important for anybody. It doesn't matter what age you are, maybe for our age more important, because we are on limited time and we know that. So thank you for that, Arnie. I think that's really important, and it's certainly a chapter that I would direct people to in the book. But what I love is that you've retained your sense of humor, and you also maintain that this is one of the most important things. And I certainly agree with that. I think you've got to try and see the funny side of things where you can, without being disrespectful. But it does help to laugh about things, doesn't it?
Well, I think Mark Twain said humor is the greatest gift to mankind, or the greatest treasure. You know, I love words and I love puns and jokes, but when you laugh, you can't be in pain. Laughter, the best medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had this radiotherapy, which was terrible, one of my friends, a still doctor, gave me a box set. In those days, there were still box sets of a radio program called "I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue." It was something similar to My Word. It was a very funny program, and they clever, they intricate words and phrases, and really funny. And I put them on. And when I listened to this, I'm sorry I haven't a clue, I was laughing so much that the pain actually disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, one of the most important things in any relationship is how much you laugh. You know, if you're in relationships where everything's just dull and you don't laugh, you've got a problem.
Exactly.
Now, that doesn't mean to say that you have to be enormously witty or clever. You might enjoy some funny things together, or you might enjoy jokes, but you know, I find all my relationships, every one of them, I laugh a lot. I'm very lucky that Ronnie has a similar sense of humor to me, although sometimes I think I'm probably infuriating. But my grandchildren, we laugh uproariously, and with my sons as well. And and all my friends, we just spend a lot of time laughing. And to me, that's a barometer of the relationship.
I think also now that we've come on to relationships, which of course is so very important in our lives, and particularly maybe now as we are older, the relationships take on greater meaning. How do you maintain a good, solid relationship with your spouse, your partner, your friend? I mean, you've learned lots there. And obviously there's also those family feuds, the guilt and the blame that's written into our DNA. How do you cope with that? Because I think that's really important, which makes your book so relevant also not just to the younger generation, but to our generation as well.
The most important thing in any relationship, as I said earlier, is to make the other person feel good about themselves, and they must make you feel good about yourself. Now, one of the ways of doing that, apart from great respect, has got to do with your tone of voice. I think a lot of people don't realize quite how sharp their tone of voice is. For instance, you say, darling, please put the rubbish out. You're always asking me that. Can't you see I'm busy? Why don't you do it yourself? All right, I'll do it. And then you do it. Now, that just makes everybody feel bad. If you're going to do it, say with pleasure. You're going to do it anyway. So you may as well make the other person not feel bad at least. Now, and if you can't do it, you say, sorry, I can't do it right now, but I'll do it in 5 minutes. And it's the impatience that we so often show that just makes the other person feel bad, or guilt. Just cut out the guilt. I mean, I tell the story when Ronnie drove into a pillar. And she came in and she was flustered, as she would be. And she said, my God, I've driven into a pillar. I've knocked the pillar over. I've dented the car. Now, there's a time between thinking, oh my God, that's terrible. How can you do that? And then there's the moment when you actually speak.
Yes, it's that thought process.
Right. So number one rule in life, recognize the person's feelings. I said, my God, you must be a bit shocked. You must be a bit rattled. What a shame. Sit down, have some tea. We'll call the insurance company tomorrow. I'll get the car fixed. It's not a big thing in life, which is one of my major strategies for coping, by the way, because very few things are. So, but in a relationship, recognizing the person's feelings, listening carefully. In fact, one of the things I say is you go from hearing to listening, making eye contact, no blame, no guilt, complimenting them every now and again. I look at Ronnie, who's a very beautiful woman across the room, and I think, wow, what an amazing person. You've got to do that every now and again. And you just let the person know that they're valuable, they're important. As somebody said, the secret of a good marriage is to leave 3 or 4 things a day unsaid.
I wonder how many people can actually live by those rules. They're quite difficult, I must admit. And, so often the baggage in our lives, we bring to those relationships, we bring to the conversation. And it's difficult not to transfer that baggage when we're dispensing wisdom or what we perceive as wisdom. What could be the best way of that? How would you
Well,
deal with that?
I like to think, I like to think that I'm not prescriptive in any way. So I'm trying not to let my so-called baggage get in the way, because it doesn't add anything to the person. You know, if I'm moaning and complaining about my past or whatever, it doesn't add to the relationship. So yeah, you've got baggage, but it's finished, it's past, it's over.
It's more about possibly the lessons that you've learned out of those experiences and being able to transfer those into a positive frame, because becoming part, many of us do have negative thoughts. I mean, that's quite natural, but in many ways, if you're living in a negative space, you need to change your mindset. You need to change the way you think. And it is possible. I think I mentioned to you before that I had read a book quite early on in my life called Your Erroneous Zones. Not your erogenous zones, your erroneous zones, just to check that one out, by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And I was blown away by the things that he said, and the things that I remembered the most, and I try and put into practice myself, and I'm sure you're very similar, is that we choose the way we react to things. We choose the way, if somebody insults us, we choose to be offended. We can walk away, and it's making that choice that I think is so important, and it's a lesson that we can learn at any age. Would you agree with that? Did you find that also helpful in as you were growing up and growing older?
Well, offense can be given, but it doesn't have to be taken.
Exactly. That's really what I'm saying.
But you've got to realize that, because every statement in the universe, including this one, reflects entirely on the person doing the same. Therefore, people are only talking about themselves. So are you going to put your self-esteem in the hands of someone who is highly critical or insulting? You can choose not to do it.
And you can also choose not to be with that person again. We have the choice of who we want to be our friends and who we don't.
Well, self-esteem often comes from other people's affirmation of you. So therefore mix with people who affirm you.
Exactly.
Cut out the rest.
Exactly. I think one of the other stories that I really loved was, and we're going to go back to your writing, in the days when we wrote letters. And I think the audience will relate to this. And also because we're probably running out of time. Stacey, I'm not sure how much longer we have. How much longer you need to give for questions?
Well, maybe we can look to go till 11 latest, and then about 10-15 minutes for questions, about 11:15.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for that. Yes. Okay. I loved the story about Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks and the letter you wrote to him. Tell the audience that story, because I just think it's such a lovely story.
Well, everybody's only human. And Jonathan Sacks wrote a book called The Dignity of Difference. And he said that we've got our God, the Muslims have got their God, the Christians have got their God. We've got to respect it. And the far right Haredi wanted him impeached because they said there's only one God. And he gave an interview to The Guardian, and The Guardian, which is extremely left-wing, anti-Israel newspaper, We asked him the question, what about all the Palestinian lives that are being lost? And he said, I weep for innocent victims on all sides. And The Guardian had a headline, Chief Rabbi criticizes Israel. So my friend Alan Fisher, who was very friendly with Jonathan Sachs, told me he was very depressed. So I wrote him a letter. I'd never met him. He'd given a talk at a rally for Israel at Trafalgar Square, the theme of which was Israel, I'm proud of you. So he said, you know, Israel, you took the desert, made it into a garden. Israel, I'm proud of you. You've survived all these wars. Israel, I'm proud of you. So I wrote him a letter. I said, Jonathan Sachs, I'm proud of you. That was about a 2-page letter. And I gave all the things that he'd done and stuff like that. I then got a reply, which was handwritten. And he said, this is one of the most nurturing letters I've ever received, and I will cherish it. Anyway, I was very happy with that because, you know, he felt good, and he's just got to go to his study and look around, and he's got 100 places where he can get solace. Anyway, he came to talk to our YPO group a few years later. And I went up to him, I said, hi, I'm Arnie Witkin, I wrote you a letter. He said, yeah. He said, I remember that letter well. He said, I filed it in my good news file. Now, for a man of that stature to have what he called a good news file, which he would look at every now and again to make him just sort of feel better when he wasn't feeling great. To me, that just showed the immense humanity of the man. And he was the most wonderful, sympathetic, kind, wonderful man. Mm-hmm. And it was a tragedy when he died. But what that taught me is that you should write letters or emails to people, because the written word is concrete again, and that is one certain way of making people feel good about themselves. Absolutely. And I've written a number of letters. In fact, I wrote one letter to a friend of mine who's on this call right now. And he kept that letter for 25 years. In fact, it's probably close to 30 now. And it's extremely important to express in writing what you feel.
And I think also, I love the idea of keeping a good news file as well, a real one, whether it be on your computer or a hard copy, because it's such a positive thing to open that when you're feeling a bit down, as I'm sure a lot of people are with this continuous lockdown that we've been experiencing. That also brings us to social media as well. And whilst we are all, well, maybe not all of us, but we're all getting older, and we've all had to embrace email and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and you name it, we've had to do it, which is not a bad thing because it's given us new skills. But social media can be incredibly cruel. Whilst I think Facebook is wonderful for families who are living in different countries, and email, of course, is fantastic. There are a lot of modern day problems that come out of social media, like sexting and cyberbullying, and you do cover this in your book. And I think that's an interesting thing to cover in terms of what grandparents can assist their grandchildren with on how to handle all of these things, because it's also anonymous. That's what's so frightening.
Look, I resisted social media until a few weeks ago. I went onto Facebook and, you know, I have to promote my book somehow. And I've made contact with people I haven't seen for 50 years. Mm-hmm. In fact, one person on this call, which I didn't make through social media, I haven't seen since 1957, I think, or thereabouts.
Wow.
But social media is fantastic because it gives you connection with people, especially in the lockdown. I did resist it, but I think it's just so important. Apart from families, from friends, you hear what's going on. Now, when it comes to cyberbullying, it's what I said previously about putting your self-esteem in the hands of somebody else. You know, you don't have to accept it. It can be given. You don't have to take it. You know, dog mess on the pavement is offensive. You just don't have to stand in it. And anybody who cyberbullies you, you just block them. That's one way of handling it. And the other thing is, you let it just flow in and flow out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's coming in. Just don't let it touch you. You know, be impervious to it. When it's more personal, for young people particularly, they've got to recognize where it's coming from. And that's when they've got to tap into their self-esteem, that they, you know, nobody can
nobody
can attack them. Nobody can attack them without them having a choice.
That's true. So it's again making that choice to either listen or to just say, sorry, you're not talking to me. This is
but
not
you know, Beryl,
right
they can also write it down. They can say, I've been at this has happened to me on social media.
Mm-hmm.
I'm upset, it's a fact. And the upset it is really hurting. And then the next question is, what am I going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
What's my strategy for coping? And when they write it down, they'll find that the answer will come to them. It's only when they're worried about what their friends will say and will they be embarrassed and stuff like that. But if they actually write it down, it's like a pop-up book. You know, you open those pop-up books, out comes the castle and the people and the forest.
Mm-hmm.
The answer comes out from writing things down.
I think that's probably a very good space or a very good comment to end on. And I have lots of other questions, but perhaps I'll ask those over email. But perhaps, I mean, you pepper the book with wonderful quotes from Khalil Gibran, from Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Maya Angelou, a number of different people. But I just like this one, if I may, is a Khalil Gibran quote. Tenderness and kindness are not signs of weakness and despair, but manifestations of strength and resolution. And I think, to me, that sums things up. And being kind is just so simple. It's like those random acts of kindness. They can make a difference in anybody's life. And I think that that's one of the things that I certainly took away from your book. So for everybody out there, please, if you want to ask questions, you can put your hand up. I'm going to ask Stacey to perhaps field those. But the book is called It's Not a Big Thing in Life, Strategies for Coping, Considerations for My Adult Grandchildren, and for my adult friends, I would add to that as well, Arnie. Thank you very much. The book is available at all good bookstores or from Arnie himself. and you can get hold of him if I can find it. www.arniewitkin.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so through Arnie, and of course, most of you will have his email address as well. But it is definitely the perfect book for anyone. And as I've been saying to Arnie all along, it's a book that you can keep on hand and that you'll dip into. You know, when there's a problem, it's written down. And Arnie gives a very good strategy. So thank you so very, very much for spending the time with us and for bringing all your friends. I hope that they will come back and see some of the and listen to some of the other events that CJSA does. So Arnie, thank you. Shall we see if there's any questions? Stacey, do we have any questions? This is very informal.
Guys, I would love to ask a question. My name's Craig.
Great. Go for it.
Firstly, I've got to tell you something. I'm so honored to be here because my parents are on the call from Johannesburg, Brian and Lynette Sims. But, you know, I said to David Witkin, who's on his, I think my second dad, you know, if I have a second dad, is Arnie Witkin. And
Wonderful.
Arnie, it's so great. I haven't seen you for so long. I'm calling from LA. The time now is 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm up to see you.
Wow.
My parents, you know, you're joining the Arnie Witkin call. I said I didn't know about it, but I'm going to join. And I got a question for you. I was very blessed to be able to spend an immense amount of time with Arnie. He prepared me for my wedding speech. And everybody was so happy with my wedding speech. They thought I was such a legend. They didn't realize the real power behind the power is Arnie Witkin. And I got to spend time with him. I got to spend time with Michael Witkin, who's on the call. I got to spend time with David Witkin. And I don't know where Ronnie is. I'm sure she's busy, but please send her my love. Arnie, you gave me some amazing advice early on in my life. I think I was about 25, 26, 27. You said to me, Simsy, never be predictable. And I've used that a lot in my life. People cannot predict me. I want to ask you now, Arnie, you know, as you've gone through other situations that, you know, unfortunately, I haven't been close enough, you know, to be able to spend time with you and drink some tea in your kitchen in St. John's Wood. What advice now would you give me, you know, after all the things that you've gone through?
Well, the single most important thing, as I said earlier, is to take responsibility for yourself. And whatever you want to do, to have a vision of what you want to do, write down how you're going to get there, and make plans. That's my number one advice for everybody. Make a plan. What am I going to do about it? Whatever the situation is. Now, I did say you shouldn't be predictable, but I did say you should be reliable.
Yes, you did. And I've been reliable to my wife, and that's what you told me. Be reliable to your wife. Arnie, that's some amazing advice, and I wanted to wish you continued success. And, you know, in this month of Elul, I wish everybody Tova.
Thank you. Good to see
Beryl
you.
and hello.
Hello, Philip.
Arnie,
How are you?
Good to see you, as always, Beryl. And thank you for introducing us to Arnie and for this wonderful interaction that you had. Arnie, you are very, very privileged to have, I think, one of Cape Town's best interviewers. Okay, come on, take it. No, come on, take it as a compliment. You're allowed to do that.
Thank you very kindly.
Arnie, I think your advice and what you have to say is so relevant, and it's really good to hear it. And I've always taken advice from an elderly person many years ago who said to me, you know, everyone tells you to listen to other people, listen to them, but no one tells you to listen to yourself. How you say things, which is something that you remarked about. So thank you for all the good advice you gave us. And also, I just want to remark and take up what message that was sent out. There are lots of people here from Cape Town, from all over the world, but lots of people from Cape Town who mightn't normally be tuning into what CJSA has amazingly done for the past 18 months, which is having this daily Zoom program, with Thursdays being one of the particular days where something important happens. So if anybody would like to tune in or get the Zoom program, it's a very active and proactive program that comes out every week. Just drop admin@cjsa.org.za email.
In the chat,
and you'll, it's okay, Amanda, thank you. So in the chat,
Well,
you've got the email address, and keep in touch and you'll get a wonderful program. And also just a quick punt, if anyone wants to come to Yiddishland tomorrow, Otterzee, which is a program which initially started in London many moons ago, which we've adapted, it's the 14th birthday party. So if anyone wants to celebrate and learn a little bit of Yiddish at the same time, it's going to be real fun with lots of good music as well. And what we call our Yiddish Academy of Veronica Belling and Rochelle Weiner and Sybil Castle. It's going to be really quite a fun-packed morning. So if you tap in at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, you can have a lot of fun. But thank you to everybody for being here, in particular for this introduction. Arnie, the book is something that should be read and said to be. I think we'll have to do that. But that's enough for now. If any more questions, Arnie, please raise a hand or just start talking. Unmute yourself and talk.
I see Robert is raised his hand. So
Yes.
Robert, if you want to unmute there.
Yes, I did already. Toda Rabba, Arnie. This is Robert from Amsterdam. You mentioned several times, so that Beryl, actually, the Jewish heritage in your life and in the lives of quite a number of people on this call. Would you be so kind to sort of mention a couple of things that your Jewish heritage has helped in the insights you have found in your life today? Your Jewish heritage, what does it contribute?
I think it's just, you're brought up with values that you get from, from your at school and your bar mitzvah and throughout the period, but your early Jewish values are the ones that stay with you. I think that I identify very closely with being Jewish, although I'm certainly not a good shul goer or anything else. But I just think it's a feeling of camaraderie with other Jewish people. Having said that, I like to think that I treat everybody the same. Jewish, not Jewish, black, white, brown, yellow, male, female. I just treat people as people, and those values they're Jewish values, but they're all values. They're universal.
Okay, Toda Rabba. You will.
Nice to see you, Robert.
Same here.
There's a comment in the chat from a Jordan Fantonda. He said, I had to drop the call, but just wanted to say thank you, Arnie, for sharing your wisdom and this book. It changed the way I look at life, and I will hold it close always.
That's wonderful.
Are there any other
more
questions?
Just a comment. I was thinking, why did Arnie Witkin choose the title for his book? It's not a big thing in life. I think, Arnie, that's what you said, right? A big thing in life. Yeah, I'd love you to expand upon it, because, when I trade the market like you're in the market, and I see the futures at 1 a.m. here in LA, and I realize that, that it's going to go down. How do you break that it's not a big thing in your life to help the average person? Let's not get too involved in the moment, because if you zoom out, it's actually not a big thing in life. How did you choose that title?
I chose that title because I think that few things are big things in life. You know, I tell the story in the book when David knocked over the milk onto my papers, which I was about to present to my board. And he said, "Dad, are you cross?" And I said, "No, I'm not cross. It's not a big thing in life." Because that's one. Most things are not big things in life. You know, what if you might play bridge? You call 6 no trumps and your partner doesn't finesse the king. And you say, "How could you be so ridiculous? You should have done, we could have made this contract." For God's sake, it's not a big thing. So I use the title because the strategy.
Arnie, that's a great perspective. How do I deal with my wife who thinks it's a very big part that I'm still talking to you at 2 a.m. in LA?
Well, it is a big thing in life. You know, you come, you talk to me face, it makes good. You tell me I'm a good guy. That's
Arnie, you're not a good guy. You're an unbelievable guy.
That's kind of you.
I see there's a Zilla and Natalie, or is that a wave or a hand up?
I think they
It's
both want to
Zilli.
ask questions.
Hello, Zilli.
Sorry, my full name is Atsila, so it's a, to say something, Arnie. I have 10 copies of your books because after I read it and I ran a project in town for people of all walks of life, from laborers to people that hardly can read, by the way. And I give them this book when I know somebody is ready. I don't want to just throw it away. So it's read it, and it is amazing what a change in people's life this book of yours is doing. So I really have to thank you greatly, and to say at least you know that the ripple effect, it's gone lots of places by now. All your wisdom. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Celine.
Arnie, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed listening to your wisdom, and I'm going to write a few things down in the book as well. But just Philip mentioned the Yiddish tomorrow, and you know, when I saw the name of your book, it really reminded me of something that my gran always used to say, was gefährlich, which is not dangerous, but it actually it's not the end of the world. And I thought, well, that's the Yiddish translation of your book. So when Philip mentioned it, I thought I need to say that to you. Think of Granny Santa saying to you, "Nicht gefährlich." Thanks a lot.
Natalie, that was absolutely perfect. I think you'd better come to Ottersee tomorrow and contribute. Your
Roy,
Yiddish
you
is
have your
not
hand
knowing it.
Hi there. Morning, Arnie. Congratulations on the book and the launch. I think that's fantastic. And I know that it was an interesting journey for you. Your first book, and I don't think it was your first book, Exactly As I Am, I have the pleasure to hold and to read. And if you don't mind me sharing one photograph of you as a goalkeeper there.
Wow.
Is a little different to some of your books, but I mean, this was one of the books that we helped people write. And this is very dear to us because it's one of the thickest books that we've had done. You had a lot to say in there. And I just wanted to ask you one thing. The whole objective of Lifebook is to give people a project, give them some meaning to the life that they have led and the values that they can pass on. And these projects that you've done, this book that you're currently talking about, and Exactly As I Am, and what do they mean to you in actually getting them done, putting them down on paper?
You know, thanks, Roy. It's very kind of you to show me that great picture of when I was very fit. I think that the Life book was particularly, it was bought for me for my 70th birthday by my son David, because he wanted the legacy. And it was my autobiography, which I thought nobody except the family would be interested in. So as you know, I only printed 9 copies. This current book is much more, it's for everybody, and it's not, the stories are autobiographical, but the principles aren't. But the big thing about exactly as I am, is that it's for my children and grandchildren and maybe later generations. And I feel it's so important for them to know the history, where I come from, and it's the legacy that they have. So it's terribly, it means a lot to me.
It's great. And I think, you know, you remember the story. I started it for my father because I wanted him to have a project. And that's what I was talking about. It's that project and those values that you get down on paper. I've been invited by the Johannesburg chapter actually to do a little bit of a talk on the value of legacy, not money.
Yeah. Well, I always say, I want to be remembered as being funny.
You will be. Thank you.
Winky Ringo, you've got your hand up. If you want to unmute.
He wants to go to the toilet.
Okay, while we wait for him to unmute, we have a few comments from Arnold Basarabi. Arnie, you're a real legend. Thanks for adding so much value to so many people. Best wishes. We got Margot Georgie. I can't see the rest of that name. Probably Fantunda. Had to drop off the call, but like my brother Jordan said, your book has changed our lives. We practice your wisdom on a daily basis and feel honored to know you. Thank you. And then Colin Goldberg asks, where can we get this book, and is it available online or on Kindle?
Both. It's available online and on Kindle.
Okay, great. And then we've got from Yvonne, hold on a second, said, I'm a child survivor of Shoah. I find it so difficult to feel positive.
Well, can I just speak to that one? Have we got time? My mother-in-law was in Dachau, and for her, she never got out of the camps. On her 70th birthday, Ronnie made her a beautiful party, catered, her hair done, a new dress. And I said to her, Musi, did you enjoy your party? She said, well, when I think what they did to my brother and my father in the camps, myself. And I must say for Yvonne, I feel very strongly. I feel for her. I understand how she's feeling, what she's going through. It is very difficult when you've had that kind of experience to feel positive. And you know, you've got to, I think somehow, somewhere, you probably have to want to feel positive somewhere. And if you can just take some good things out of everyday life, your interactions with your family, if you have one, with your friends, with your associations, you know, even with things like CJSA and other organizations, and just, you know, connecting with other people, just connecting with other people in itself makes you feel better. So I'm really sorry that Yvonne has this feeling, and it's a real feeling. And somehow I can hope she can find some joy in even, you know, some small things in life on a hope daily basis. But I can understand it's not easy. Perhaps she should write down, but I feel more positive. And then
Thank you.
all the things that she could possibly do, but it's very tough.
Thank you. Beryl, is there anything else you wanted to say?
I think
Oh,
just to remind people that if they do want the book, it is available online. They can get it directly from www.arniewitkin.com or go onto Amazon or Kindle. In Cape Town, it is in good bookstores, but sometimes these days it's easier to take it online. But I also believe that it's a book that we all need to have in our households and give to our friends, our family, and dip into it whenever we have. So thank you very much for this opportunity, Stacey. And Arnie, thanks a million. It's been a wonderful conversation. I think we could have probably gone on quite a bit longer, but yes, to the next time, and take care of yourself. And to everybody who joined us, you know, what a wonderful turnout. And I know that that's due in great part to Arnie's network as well. So thank you for joining us, and I hope that you'll join the CJSA pop-ins again at a later stage as well. If you do want to join the CJSA, you can just send them an email at admin@cjsa.org.za, correct?
You got it.
Got
Thank
it.
you very much,
Thank
Beryl.
you.
And thank
Thank you
you,
so
and thank
much.
you again, Arnie. And thank you, Stacey, for keeping us all in order here today. So all the best to everybody. Let's all have a
Great.
good day, a positive day, and sei gesund. And we won't worry about things as in Yiddish and in English. Take care.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Thank you
Shalom.
very
God
much.
bless.
thank you,
God bless.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers, Arnie.
Thanks, Annie.